Hello everybody, welcome back to A Person's Haven. My name is Lindsay. Today we are going to be processing all of these bags of corn that we bought at the produce auction. So here is some video that my niece took of us processing the corn. This crew consisted of myself, my brother, my husband, my grandparents, my parents, my nieces and nephews, and we all sat around and we cleaned corn and got it ready for preservation. This is how we used to do corn when I was a kid. We'd all gather around and make a big day of it. So I really enjoyed doing this with my family because it brought back many memories. And the poor photography is due to my niece having a little bit of fun, so enjoy that.
Just laughing. No, he's just sitting here watching us.
Was he laughing in his sleep?
As long as you don't know that he can see somebody
Sideways, guy.
holding him, you know.
Tickle, tickle. Stop it, Bryson. You have corn all over you.
And I think like at the wedding, as long as Andrew holds him or Cassie, you know what I mean?
All right, everybody, so we have made it home from Wisconsin. It's been a very, very busy weekend. As you can see from the video, we had some family time. We cleaned some corn, we cleaned some cabbage. Our freezers are getting full. So we need to get the corn processed. So that is what we're gonna work on right now. We brought all the corn back in this. We ended up with 14-gallon bags of corn, and we are gonna process it. My sister suggested using an electric turkey roaster. I have never done that before, but she suggested doing the electric turkey roaster. We follow a recipe that my grandma passed along to us. So my sister said that one roaster of corn is equivalent to 3 batches of my grandma's recipe, so that is what I'm gonna follow. So I'm going to fill up this roaster and then I'm going to measure out 3 batches of the recipe. If you want the recipe, I will link it down below. I'm sure my grandma will be looking down from heaven, happy to share it with people. This is the corn that she made for everybody's weddings growing up. My grandma had a big family, so my aunts were significantly younger than my dad. So I got to go to a lot of their weddings growing up. And this was the corn that she made for all the weddings. So in this family cookbook that my aunts made when my grandma passed away, it literally says wedding corn. So we are just going to follow that. We're gonna test out the roaster because we have a lot of corn to do and not a lot of time to get it done. My freezer space is getting small, so after this corn, I actually might go down there and pull out all of my chicken legs, bones, I should say not legs, bones, and throw them in the roaster because they gotta cook for 24 hours, and I might can up broth because that'll give us a big chunk of our freezer back. So let me grab some more things and we will get this started. Alright, so for this recipe, it calls for butter, sugar, salt, water, and corn. And the original recipe on here says to boil for 5 minutes, which is typically what I do. I am definitely follow by recipe on some things, not everything, not a lot of things. But this is one thing I follow by recipe pretty close because I love this corn and I want to make sure it turns out correctly. But with us buying 24 dozen of corn this weekend, I'm going to test out my sister's little trick and see if it works. And if it does, this might be my new trick for here until eternity. Because Lord knows I need a trick sometimes in order to get stuff done. So in the end, at the produce auction, we ended up with 25 dozen of corn. We paid $1 a dozen for the corn, which is fairly cheap because when we looked around town as we were out and about this weekend, there were people charging anywhere between $4 to $6 a dozen. So to get that much corn for $1 a dozen, we basically got all the corn we needed for an entire year and then some probably, for 25 bucks. We did end up giving 1 dozen of the corn away. We gave half a dozen to my parents, and then we gave half a dozen to a family friend who did come along to the auction with us. And other than that, we brought everything else home. So we have this corn. I started it on 250 degrees. I don't know if it's gonna stay there. I'm afraid of it scorching to the sides because, as you know, these roasters cook from the sides and the bottom. And so because it's not fully submerged in water, I'm a little afraid. So I'm just going to start it slow and keep stirring it often. I'm going to top this off with a little more corn now that I got the butter stirred in there to make the roaster full. I don't have a garbage bag set up yet, so I'll have to grab that. But I'm going to put the lid on this, and while this is starting to cook, I'm going to get my kitchen cleaned up, get my dishes from last week put away, and yeah, there's more projects that need to get done. So stick around. So I am going to turn the corn up to 300 just because it's not really heating like I thought it would, and it's not sticking, so I'm going to turn that up. Alright, the corn is starting to get warm. The butter is melting, I can smell it. But it has definitely got a little ways to go yet. So what I might do is throw some on the stove, because we really don't have refrigerator room to store this corn overnight, and do some more in the morning. So it's got to get in the freezer. All right, everybody, so as much as I like the idea of doing the corn in the roaster, unfortunately it is 5:38 at night. With my work schedule, I get up at 3:30, so I'm in bed by 8 o'clock. So I need to speed up the process, so I'm going to get some batches on the stove and start them. So by the recipe from my grandma, it calls for 24 cobs of corn. We did some research online, and it said that 24 cobs of corn is roughly 16 cups. So I'm going to measure out 16 cups of corn in each pan.
You know, just to break up the awkward silence. I can hear slightly better. Oh, I wonder if I can find some like growth and free weekend. Do some like bop and going all the trade. And give those beats per minute up. Let me see if I can find. It could be bouncing. I don't know if we can give it a try. Hit the old shuffle button. Price sell off here. Let's try Fantasy Arcade with the news, and we did so successfully.
Alright guys, so when you are doing this on the stove, you measure everything out, you bring it to a boil, and you boil it for 5 minutes. Then you let it cool, and then we're going to bag it, put it in the freezer. We cannot bag it scalding hot. We do have to cool it a little bit. So we'll just wait for this to come to a boil. Alright guys, so my first pot here has already come to a boil. I have been able to kind of stir in the butter, make sure that it's below the corn. So I am going to set a timer on my microwave for 5 minutes. Oh, not 50. Hang on. 5. And then this one is just going to boil like this for 5 minutes. Alright, so this guy is starting to boil as well. So I'm going to set my watch for this one. Hey Siri, set a timer for 5 minutes. So we do have to let this cool before we can bag it up to put in the freezer. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop it into my large bowl carefully. Try not to burn myself. And then I am going to set it over on the counter to let it cool so I can start a second batch. pour it away from you so it doesn't splatter you with butter. Alright, so this corn here, as you guys can see, it kind of turned from that white, yellow color to the dark golden color. It is bubbling around the edges, and it is steaming. So I am going to turn this off. I'm going to take the lid off. We're going to let it cool. I might try to figure out how to transfer this out of here so I can get one more batch in here. But since it is such a large batch, I might have to leave it be. But we will come back once we start bagging. Alright guys, so our corn has been cooling. It still might be a little warm, but not scalding anymore. So I'm going to start bagging it. Still steaming pretty good. I'm going to try 2 cups and see what that looks like in my bag, because I can't remember if I normally do 2 or 4 cups. And I want to say I normally do 4. Let me check with my husband and see what he thinks. Okay, so we did decide we normally do 4. So I will get 2 more scoops in here. And you take the liquid and everything, so don't be afraid to scoop some of that liquid up. And then since it is a little warm yet, we're gonna clean off. These have to be washed. This is clean. I'm gonna clean off my little rack here and just set them here. These bags are actually pretty nice because they have the bottom that allows them to sit flat. So I'm just going to bag them up and let them sit flat to cool. And when this bowl is empty, I am going to transfer my other pot into this bowl. Right here in our kitchen window, we have a fan, so we can either suck cool air in or blow hot air out. And it is relatively cool here today, I believe in the 60s, low 60s. And so we've been pulling that cool air into the house while we've been working. So I placed the corn right in front of it in order to allow it to cool. Alright, and I'm gonna go get the other corn and get it in this bowl. Alright everyone, so we have about 2-gallon bags left of corn, and I decided that I would like to try to pressure can them, so we are going to give that a go. So I have a Presto digital pressure canner, and I've used it a few times. I'm still fairly new to it, so I always take out my user guide. I have my instruction manual, and then I also have my home preserving ball canning book that I'm going to use. So first thing that we need to do is put 3 quarts of water into our pressure canner. So I'm going to go grab 3 quarts of water and put that in. And 3 quarts. And then the next thing that we need to do is fill each of the jars that we'll be putting in here about halfway with hot water so they don't float when they're in there. So this pressure canner can hold 5 regular mouth jars at the quart size. So I'm going to do 5 quarts halfway full and put them in the water. And then one thing this does not say to do, but I read about it in another canning book that I have, and I started doing it. It works phenomenally. Is putting 3 tablespoons of white vinegar into here, and that will prevent the white water scale from collecting on the outside of the jars. So I'm gonna go grab the vinegar and do that before I add any more jars. All right, we have our 5 jars in there. The next thing that we are going to do is warm up these jars. So how we do that is we are going to put the lid back on, put it to the locked position, close our valve. All right, so I moved you guys here so you could see the screen on the canner. So right now it's asking, do we want to choose pressure can or boiling water can? And we want to choose pressure can. So once this is flashing, I push the play button. The next thing you're going to do is set how long you're going to pressure can your items for. So based on my manual for this, it is going to take 85 minutes to pressure can. So I'm going to do 85 and push play. Next it says insert jars, which we already did that. So we'll press play again. And now if you can see, I'll bring you a little closer here. It says warm. So that means it is warming our jars. So now we just have to wait for our jars to warm, and then we will fill them with our corn. So one thing I have learned over the years is making sure that your rings do not have rust on them. Growing up, I learned how to can from my dad. He reused rings and lids, and it didn't matter if there was rust. So that is one thing that I am learning as I am watching more videos about it, is rust is no good. So make sure these are rust free. All right, so my canner just beeped, and now if you can see right here, it says fill jars. So our next step will be filling the jars. All right, so we're gonna take the lid off again. Now the jars inside are hot, but we do not need the liquid from them. But since it is just water, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dump it into here, because we do need boiling water to fill our jars. And I'm kind of paranoid, and I'm afraid one pot is not gonna be enough. So I'm gonna lift it out of here. I'm gonna dump it into here. I'm gonna fill my jar with corn. So it says leave about 1/2 inch head space. So 1/2 inch is right about here. So filled it up to there. I'm gonna add my teaspoon of salt. And I'm gonna take this water and pour it in there. And then I'm gonna take a butter knife and go down along all the edges to make sure that there's no air pockets in there. Again, it says leave 1/2 inch headspace, so that is right where my water is. I'm gonna use my magnet here. And I'm gonna, oh, one thing I did forget. You wanna have a paper towel with a little water on it. And I'll wipe the lid here, make sure it's cleaned off. And I'll put that lid on, the ring on. This is now kind of cool from the corn. So we're gonna set that back in there. And we're gonna repeat with the next jars. Alright, so we got the jars filled. We're gonna put the lid back on. Jars filled, push play. Now it says heat, so we gotta close this down. And we wait until the canner tells us to put the weight on. All right, so our canner is ready to can. The put regulator symbol came on. So we are gonna place our regulator onto the top here and push play. And it is now set for 85 minutes. And this is going to pressure can for 85 minutes. All right, everybody, so the canner beeped a while ago while we were eating supper. So if you can see the screen, it says cool. So it is now cooling down. Once it is cool, it will beep again. And that means that it is ready to remove the jars. So as you can see right here, the stopper is still up, which means it's still under pressure. So we just sit here and wait until it tells us it's ready for us to take the jars out. Okay, everybody, I wanted to pop on here real quick at the end of this video. So I was just editing the corn video and I realized that the video abruptly stopped and you guys were left with no conclusion. So I wanted to pop on here and show you what the conclusion of the corn was. This is probably a month and a half since we did the corn, and I'm just getting around to editing the video for that corn. So let me show you what we got from all of that corn. Now remember, we bought 24 dozen of corn. We gave 1 dozen away to my parents and family friend. And all total, we spent $24, $1 a dozen. So this is what we ended up with. Okay, so I did can the corn it did pressure can. I realized that I also didn't show you me taking it out of the pressure canner, but it did come out. I have 4 jars on my shelf still. We did eat 1 jar. The only negative to these cans, you can't really tell. You can kind of tell when I tilt it, but the liquid in the corn got very dark. And when we ate it, it did taste a little sour. Now, after doing some research, I have come to the conclusion that when you can corn, it does sometimes take on a sour flavor. And most people that do can corn have noted that. So I did take note of that as well. But the other thing I think that happened was I believe that my corn scorched. So, okay, so the book told me to pressure can the corn for 85 minutes. And then you also have the 10-minute of venting and the afterward, which is the cooling and the depressurizing. So all total, the corn was probably in the hot environment for over an hour, maybe even an hour and a half. So in the future, although I would love to have canned corn on my shelf because it frees up some freezer space, I don't think canned corn will be my preferred method. I'm going to eat the 4 cans I have left. I'm probably going to use it in soups or hot dishes. But in the future, I probably will stick with the freezer corn and make sure that I have freezer space for that because the corn did have a slightly sour and slightly burnt taste, which to me is not that appealing. My husband ate it. He thought it tasted fine, but I did not like it. So in the future, if I'm going to buy that much corn and I'm going to go through the work of preserving it, I'm going to preserve it in a method that I like, which is going to be the freezer corn. So let's head downstairs. I'll show you the freezer corn and tell you how many bags we got of those. All right, everybody. So we are in the basement and I'm going to show you the freezer corn. I just went in and counted the bags because I wasn't even sure how many bags we had. And we have not used any of the bags yet. And I could not even get to the bottom of the stack of corn because there are so many in there. But I was able to count a minimum of 26 bags, but a couple of the rows do go deeper. So my guesstimate is we probably got about 30 to 35 bags of the freezer wetting corn, and each bag is between 2 to 3 cups of corn. So let me show you what we're looking at. All right, so this is my freezer with my veggies, and we have 4 stacks of corn. These 2 stacks here equal 13 bags by themselves. These 2 stacks go much deeper than these bags do, or these stacks do. So that's how I did my estimation, but they do take up some room, which is why I was hoping the canning method worked, but it did not. Okay, everybody, so that wraps up my corn preservation, corn extravaganza video. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know there was a lot going on in this video. You got to get a glimpse into my family back home. You also got a chance to see different preservation methods of corn, and hopefully something that I showed you in this video was useful and you can take that to your kitchen and preserve some corn for your family for the cold winter months. If you enjoyed this video, please like, please subscribe, and push the thumbs up button. Share this video with your friends and family, and while you wait for my next upload, I will link a few videos here on the side for you to watch. But until next time, everybody, I hope you have a good day.